Hey, welcome collectors of all ages. This is Mike with Jayhawker Vintage Cards. And today's video, I'm recording it late Thursday, November 13th. In the morning, I've got to get up and do some surgery. So I decided I wanted to make one more video before I go under the knife, so to speak. I wanted to talk about something that is near and dear to me, and that's the Hall of Fame. Now, I'm not talking about this year's ballot with the steroid users. I don't want to get anything in controversy or drama or anything like that. But what I want to talk about are the players who I feel are the most underappreciated, top-tier Hall of Famers by position. Now, what do I mean by top tier? I mean, these are not the marginal guys. These aren't the guys you could argue should or shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. These are no-brain Hall of Famers. No-brainer. Everybody would agree these guys belong in the Hall of Fame. Now, I wanted to use something that you at home, who are watching this, could follow along with. So I went to baseballreference.com, which I go to almost every day. And I'm going to use WAR, which most of you are familiar with. Now, I have an issue a little bit with WAR. It's not the be-all, end-all by any means, especially when it comes to rating guys defensively. I think their metrics are messed up. But I'm using WAR. Now, what WAR does is it assigns a number to a player for each year they play. And then at the end, or for their career, it has an overall career total. JAWS is a little bit different. It calculates the 7 best seasons of a player's career. It doesn't have to be consecutive, but the 7 best seasons. So basically, their peak. And it calculates that in with the career WAR to come up, spits out another number. I actually like the JAWS a little bit better because it includes both the whole career and a player's peak, which I think is important. Now, one player per position. I'm not going to have 3 center fielders on this team. The right fielder that I pick is a right fielder. The center fielder is going to be a center fielder, and so on and so forth. 2 caveats. One is shortstop. I could not decide between 2 guys. I just could not do it, so I'm going to have both of them on here. For pitchers, I was just going to do a left-handed starter and a right-handed starter, but I couldn't decide on the 2 right-handed starters, so I'm going to show 2 of those. I'm not doing a DH, and I'm not doing relief pitchers. Now, what I would like you to do is in the comments or in your own video, tell me where I'm wrong, tell me where I'm right, who you agree with, who you disagree with, tell me who you would pick. But this is supposed to be fun. And I'm going to be showing cards along the way that I have. Not every card I have these players, but just a few of my favorite cards of the players. Anyway, enough talking about this. Let's go ahead and turn the camera around, show you some cards, and let me show you who I have selected as the most underappreciated, top-tier Hall of Famers by position. Okay, let's start off my selections for the most underappreciated, top-tier Hall of Famers by position. We're going to start with first base, and my selection is the Big Cat, Johnny Mize. Johnny Mize has a career WAR of 70.6, which is good for 11th all-time. His JAWS is 59.5, which is 9th all-time. And there's a beautiful rookie, Johnny Mize. Now, I think what hurts Johnny Mize is that he lost 3 years to the war. Now, you don't hear that much about Johnny Mize like you do for guys like DiMaggio, Hank Greenberg, and, of course, Teddy Ballgame. But Johnny Mize missed 3 of his prime years to World War II serving our country. So my first baseman, Johnny Mize. Sliding over to second base, the player that I selected is Little Joe, Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan was, for a time in the 70s, easily the best player in baseball. In the 75 and the 76 Big Red Machine, again, he was the best player on that team. But he gets overshadowed because his teammates, such as Pete Rose and Johnny Bench, and even really Tony Perez, he just doesn't get the love and recognition that he deserves. But he was a 5-tool player, and his 1975 and 76 seasons were monster seasons. And in my opinion, Joe Morgan is without a doubt the most underappreciated top-tier second baseman who's in the Hall of Fame. Okay, moving over to shortstop. I could not decide between 2 of these guys, so I went ahead and went with both. The first one is Arky Vaughan, great shortstop of the Pittsburgh Pirates, who really just within the past 20, 25 years has become recognized as one of the greatest shortstops of all time. In fact, in Bill James' first edition of his baseball historical abstract, Arky Vaughan was hardly mentioned at all. By the time that James revisited and revised that book, Arky Vaughan was all the way up to the second best shortstop of all time. Now, Arky Vaughan's WAR, 77.9, which is good for fifth all time. His JAWS, 65.5, which is best or fourth best of all time. Now, the guy I had trouble picking him over, but I did, is gorgeous George Davis. Now, George Davis was probably year in, year out the best National League player from about 1897 to the early 1900s. Now, he got sent over, or he signed with the Chicago White Sox in 1906, the Hitless Wonders. They beat the crosstown Chicago Cubs in the World Series. George Davis basically disappeared from history for decades until Lee Allen, who was at that time the historian of the Baseball Hall of Fame, put some feelers out for different players, found out where he had disappeared to, and I think he passed away like around 1940. But this guy should have been one of the first guys in the Hall of Fame. What hurt him is his career was half in the 19th century and half in the 20th century. And it was really hard for guys to put their mind and wrap their mind around that. So those are my shortstops. Now, in terms of his WAR, 84.9, which is fourth best of all time. His JAWS is 64.7, fifth best of all time. So you have Vaughn had the better JAWS, and then George Davis had the better WAR. Two outstanding shortstops that deserve more recognition. Moving over to third base, we have one of my favorite baseball players of all time, the great Eddie Matthews. Now, when Eddie Matthews came up in the early 1950s, it was him, not Mantle, not Mays, that writers at that time thought, hey, this guy might break Babe Ruth's career home run record. Not only did he not do that, well, his future teammate, Hank Aaron, did. So it was really kind of a bad deal for Matthews, and I think because he started off so quickly and then kind of faded behind Aaron, that people just, they forgot about him. And unfortunately, he kind of rates behind a lot of guys. And in my opinion, he's outstanding. In terms of WAR, 96.0, which is good for second all time amongst third basemen. His JAWS, 74.9, which ranks second among all third basemen. The great Eddie Matthews definitely deserves more love from history and from the hobby. Moving to the outfield for my left fielder, I have Leon Goose Goslin. Now, Leon was an RBI machine. Now, if you look at his counting stats, it's very impressive, except for home runs. And the reason for that is the majority of his career he played in Washington, and that was maybe the toughest home run park or park to hit a home run in during his era. You'd see a lot of seasons where he'd hit just a few home runs at home, but several on the road. In fact, one season he got traded mid-season to the St. Louis Browns, and in that part of the season with the St. Louis Browns, he hit 30 home runs. So you can see it was a little bit different, but look at his stats, look at his counting stats, look how great this guy was, and hardly anybody knows a thing about him. In terms of WAR, 66.0, which is good for 11th all time. And his JAWS is 54.7, which is 9th best of all time. Heading over to center field, we have one of my absolute favorite players to collect. And that is the Duke, Duke Snider. Now, most of you are familiar with the song Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. But nobody really seems to know just how great Duke was when the Dodgers were still in Brooklyn. Now, if you look at the stats of those guys back in those days, you will definitely see just how good Duke was. In fact, he got robbed of at least, two MVP awards that Roy Campanella won, in my opinion, could have gone to Duke Snider. An absolute mammoth of a season. over and over again. And when Willie, Mickey, and the Duke were at their very best in the 50s, all playing in New York, they were pretty close to even. There's another beautiful card of his. And this one I recently picked up with my buddies down in St. Louis, and that's his rookie there, Duke Snider. Now, in terms of his WAR, now he'd had a pretty short career, but his WAR was lifetime 66.0, which is 10th best of all time, and his JAWS is 57.8, which is 8th best of all time. So you can see when he was at his best, he was really, really good. Duke Snider, my center fielder. Okay, moving over to right field. This is the guy, this is the player who I think may be the most underappreciated top-tier Hall of Famer of all time. And I'm talking about Frank Robinson. Two-time MVP, won in the American League, won in the National League, won the Triple Crown in 1966 for the Baltimore Orioles. And yet nobody, hardly anybody, talks about this guy. I think if you would ask 100 hobbyists who is a better player, Frank Robinson or Roberto Clemente, most would say Roberto Clemente, and those guys would be wrong. Frank Robinson wasn't the fielder of Roberto, but he was a better player. In terms of WAR, Frank Robinson, 107.2, which is 4th best of all time, and ahead of Roberto Clemente. JAWS, 80.1, again, ahead of Roberto Clemente. Not much difference between the two, but if you ask me who is a better baseball player, I would say Frank Robinson. Oh, and he was also the first black manager in Major League Baseball history. Okay, let's move behind the plate to catcher, and this one might surprise a few of you. I am going with the kid, Gary Carter. Now, that might be a shock to some of you, but let me tell you why. Gary Carter, for about a 10-year stretch, never had a bad year. No great catcher in history ever accomplished that before Gary Carter, with one exception, Yogi Berra. Name any of the great catchers. Johnny Bench, Roy Campanella, Bill Dickey, who platooned a lot of his career. Any of those guys, they all had good seasons and some bad seasons. Good seasons, bad seasons. Gary Carter, for the majority of his career, a big chunk, never had a bad season. Consistent. Just like Yogi Berra, year in and year out. My catcher on my list of underappreciated top-tier Hall of Famers, Gary Carter. Now, when it comes to WAR, Gary Carter, 70.1, second best all time. When it comes to JAWS, 59.2, which is also second best of all time. And a lot of people just don't realize how good this guy was. Plus, I give him bonus points for having cool cards like this, and he was a baseball card collector himself, so I gave him a couple extra bonus points for that. Okay, let's move out to the mound and pick some pitchers. So my left-handed pitcher was an easy one. The big unit, Randy Johnson. Now, Chris from Missouri was on a video earlier today talking about the candidates on the Hall of Fame ballot, and he brought up an interesting point that a lot of people don't talk about. Now, it's not only these guys that use a steroid, in my opinion, cheated the game, but they also cheated other players out of additional recognition. And Chris said something that I agree with. If Roger Clemens had not been juicing to keep his career going strong, Randy Johnson could have easily won 2 additional Cy Young awards. In terms of Randy Johnson's WAR, 101.1, which is 10th best of all time. His JAWS, 81.3, which is also 10th best of all time. Now for pitchers, I had a hard time, so I went ahead and went with 2 for right-handed pitchers. First guy, Tom Terrific. Now, I'm a Nolan Ryan guy. That was my favorite player growing up. But Tom Seaver was not only the best pitcher of his generation, I think he was the best pitcher whose career started after World War II. Better than Gibson, better than Warren Spahn, better than Nolan Ryan, Jim Palmer, any of these guys. I think it was Seaver. The only guy I think even comes close to him would be Greg Maddux. Tom Terrific's WAR, 109.9, which is sixth best all time. His JAWS is 84.7, which is eighth best of all time. Now, the guy that I would put just a little bit above Seaver, though, Grover Cleveland Alexander. Now, one cool thing about Grover Cleveland Alexander is he was named after a president, Grover Cleveland, and then he was later portrayed by a future president, Ronald Reagan, in a movie. But here's why I pick Grover Cleveland on the underappreciated team. You don't hear anybody talk about him as much as you do guys like Walter Johnson, Cy Young, Christy Mathewson. I'm not saying he's better than those guys, although I do think that he was definitely better than Christy Mathewson. And here's why. Mathewson pitched his entire career in the dead ball, where pitchers back then could pace themselves. They could let up. They could just take it easy and only bear down when they really needed to. Well, yeah, Grover Cleveland Alexander did that as well, but he also played a good part of his career in the live ball era, and he was dominant in that era as well. In terms of all-time WAR, 119.7, which is fourth best all-time. In JAWS, 94.9, which is fifth best of all time. So these are my three pitchers on the underappreciated top-tier Hall of Fame roster. Let me know what you guys think on all these. Where did I go right? Where did I go wrong? Who would you put on there? Do a video if you want, or just put comments down there. But I'm really curious. This is just a fun exercise. There's really no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever you personally feel. But I try to do as close to right as I think that I could, because these guys, I feel confident that my choices were pretty darn good. But I want to know what you guys think, because everybody's going to have different opinions, and that's what makes this exciting. So until next time, keep on enjoying collecting.